it's Raven. I just wanted to get my grades out for the Jimmy Butler trade that was just completed a few hours ago. I was waiting for all the details to come in because originally this was a five-team trade with the Raptors involved, and then the Raptors fell out of the trade. And so I was making sure that I had my details correct before coming on here to report the trade. So I want to go through who got what and where all the players are going, and then we will get into the grades. So, starting with the Warriors got Jimmy Butler, who's making 48.7 million this season, and they also signed him to a new 2-year extension. He declined his player option for next season, and he will now have a 2-year, $111 million extension starting next season. That'll take him into the 26-27 season. So he will be a Warrior now for the next 3 seasons. Then the Heat are acquiring Andrew Wiggins, PJ Tucker, and Kyle Anderson from Golden State. So they got Kyle Anderson from Golden State, Wiggins from Golden State, and then PJ Tucker is acquired from the Jazz, who had just traded for PJ Tucker. So he did not stay in Utah very long. And then the Pistons are acquiring Richardson from the Heat, Josh Richardson, and then Lindy Waters the third from the Warriors as well. And they're also getting a second round pick. Um, the Heat are also acquiring a first round pick, top 10 protected from the Warriors. And the Jazz are acquiring Dennis Schroeder and a second round pick. So, once again, real quick, Warriors get Butler. The Heat get Wiggins, Tucker, Anderson, and a top 10 first round protected pick in 2025. Pistons get Richardson, Waters, a second round pick, and the Jazz get Schroeder and a second round pick. So financially, the Warriors were able to save a little bit of money, but they're going to have they will be able to, but it's going to be very very challenging for them to be able to sign the three new players that they were needing to sign. They only have $1.8 million to sign three new players after this trade, since they were doing a 4-for-1 trade in this instance. So they're going to have to wait 2 weeks to sign them so that they can sign them and then sign them all to prorated vet minimum contracts. So we'll see who they end up signing with those slots. For the Heat, I think getting Wiggins is a nice value considering he is much younger than Butler and much cheaper than Butler. Um, I was a little surprised that they were willing to take on the 2026-2027 contract, seeing that he makes $30 million that season. And that might hurt their ability to sign a free agent in the summer of 2026. But I do like the trade for them. I liked the five-team version of the trade for them a lot more when they weren't keeping Anderson, and Anderson was either going to Detroit or the Raptors. If they can somehow get that trade back and get Kyle Anderson sent to Detroit or to the Raptors before tomorrow's deadline at 2 p.m. Central, I will bump up the Heat's grade. The Pistons, I mean, they're just taking two minimum salaries into their salary cap spot, and they're just getting a second round pick to do that. So it's a pretty good value there for them. Um, Two minimum salary guys adding up to $5 million to take on a second round pick. That's pretty good bang for your buck. basically paying $5 million for a second round pick for a year. Not too bad. And then the Jazz, they increased their salaries by about 1.5 million for this season. But Schroeder is actually a really good piece that they could potentially keep in the future. They could also reflip Schroeder, and Schroeder has a lot more value than PJ Tucker. And they're also getting a second round pick. I really do not understand why the Heat thought that it was important to flip PJ or to flip Dennis Schroeder for PJ Tucker, considering PJ Tucker is like a decade older than him and a much worse player and hasn't even played in the NBA this season. And they could still use Dennis Schroeder. I know that they do have quite a few guards in Rozier and Hero that they like in Miami, but I didn't really understand the urgency to get rid of Schroeder, considering they're both expiring contracts. I know Schroeder makes $1.5 million more than Tucker, but it's not like that $1.5 million was the difference of getting the Heat in and out of in or out of the tax. The difference of getting the Heat out of the tax is getting rid of Anderson. They're about $7.3 million over the tax right now. If they can get rid of Kyle Anderson, then they can get under the tax. So without their ability to get rid of Kyle Anderson, they're going to be a tax team and a first apron team. Just like the Warriors. The Warriors are a first apron team. The other two teams involved are non tax teams. So that's why they were able to take on money, no problem. The Jazz and the Pistons have no problem taking on extra money. The Heat and the Warriors are first apron teams and needed these other teams to facilitate the trade. So, going with grades here, I think the Warriors deserve an A plus. They get the best player in the trade, and they also were able to sign him to an extension. And they only had to give up one first round pick. When you look at all star trades, being able to get the best player in the trade, being able to know that you're going to have that player under contract for 3 seasons, and only giving up one pick that will most likely fall around 15, maybe even lower if the Warriors get really hot. Maybe they can get that pick all the way down to 20, depending on how many games they can win the next 32 games. So I think this is a really, really good trade for the Warriors. I think they have a good shot keeping Curry and Green and Kaminga and Wiggins. I think that's a pretty good team if they can all stay healthy. For the Heat, I'm going to give the Heat a B minus. If they can get rid of Anderson without taking back any salary before tomorrow's deadline, I'll give them a B plus. But as of right now, I'm going to stick with the B minus. I think Wiggins is a slightly worse player that is much cheaper, but he is much younger. So being able to get a player that is substantially cheaper and substantially younger, even if they're worse, is still a pretty big win. You did get a first round pick, even if it is top 10 protected. And then you are able to get a couple decent, helpful role players that should keep the Heat in the playoffs this season. So I don't love it. I don't hate it. It's a solid trade for the Heat. The Pistons, they're adding two end of the bench guys on minimum contracts. One of them could even get cut. The Pistons are also adding KJ Martin, so they're going to need to cut one or two players over the next couple of days here. So it's possible if this Butler 14 trade gets completed before that KJ Martin trade, that they end up cutting Josh Richardson. Um, so I don't think either of these guys are going to have too much of an impact. Although Waters did start the season off really, really well when Golden State had that great start, getting off to that 12-3 record. So it is possible that Waters could make an impact for the Pistons since they are a young team. and they do need some bench help, especially at the wing with the Jaden Ivey injury. So I'm going to give the Pistons a C plus. I just don't know if this player trade is going to help them. I think the pick helps them in the future, but as far as the players that they get in this trade, I don't know how much it helps them. With the Jazz, I'm going to give them a B because I think it helps them on the court and off the court. They only had to take on $1.5 million extra in salary. They got a better player in Schroeder than Tucker. I don't think Tucker was ever going to play for them. I think they were going to cut him. And so they got an actual usable player that can play for their team, especially if they end up trading Sexton or Clarkson before the deadline tomorrow. Uh, Schroeder could even start the rest of the season potentially for the Jazz. He's a good vet, and he's on a minimum. Or I'm sorry, he's on a expiring contract. Um, his $13 million isn't too expensive. You could even re-sign him if you want, especially if you trade Sexton or Clarkson, like I said. So he's a good player on a good contract that's expiring, and you were able to add a second round pick as well. So good on you, Danny Ainge, for continuing to collect second round picks from other teams. Danny Ainge has had a great week in collecting second round picks from the Clippers and the Lakers, and now from the Heat. So good on you, Danny Ainge. You've collected a lot of second round picks in these trades in the next week. So once again, we're going to give the Warriors an A plus, the Heat a B minus, unless they're able to turn Kyle Anderson into no incoming salary. Then we'll give them a B plus. We'll upgrade the grade to a B plus if they can clear Kyle Anderson's salary and get out of the tax. The Pistons we're going to give a C plus, and the Jazz we're going to be give a B to. All in all, I really think that this is a very helpful trade for the Warriors. I fully expect the Warriors to not only be in at least the play-in, but make the playoffs. Whether they make the playoffs through the play-in or can somehow manage to get up to sixth, maybe pushing the Clippers out. I do expect the Warriors to have a very, very strong last 32 games of the season and make the playoffs. The Heat, I don't think they'll fall off that much. They've been without Jimmy a lot. He's been suspended 3 times. So I'm going to say that the Heat will still make the playoffs as well. I think the Heat will most likely make the playoffs through the play-in. And then the Pistons, I don't think this trade changes whether they make the playoffs or not, but they'll probably be in the play-in. And the Jazz are obviously not making the playoffs and are trying to get Cooper Flag. And all these trades and acquiring future picks are just going to help them in that goal of getting better with getting better draft picks. So good trade for everybody, even though everybody's got different goals. But the most impact on the court is with Golden State. So I hope everybody liked the video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And I will be putting out more videos when we get more trades. Real quick, the only other trade that I hadn't talked about yet today that I just saw before I came on here live was Jericho Sims from the Knicks being traded to the Bucks for DeLone Wright and cash. I think that's a very good trade for the Bucks to get a backup center. Wright hasn't done a whole lot for them, and they already have an all-star point guard in Lillard. So I will give the Bucks a B for the trade. And the Knicks, I know they don't use Jericho Sims much, but I don't really understand why they need another point guard. They have plenty of depth at that position, so I would have liked to have seen them get a wing or another center that they believed in more that they could play. So I'm going to give the Knicks a C minus for the trade just because I don't really understand why they added a point guard. Anyway, I hope everybody has a great night. Once again, please like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you on the next one. Thanks. Bye, everybody.